What's up, everybody? I am your host and sheriff, Bill Party, and that is my co-host, a billion-year-old alien worm slug thing that loves dead animals, raw meat, and coming out of his testicle dicks. And welcome to the Grindhouse Syndicate, where it is officially Fan Appreciation Month, where all month long, the movies that we cover are picked by you guys. And to kick it off, we are covering a movie that I had been planning on doing for over a year now. So huge thanks to one of our favorite listeners, Brandon Martz, who requested this gem. Honestly, he requested a few movies which are all fantastic and are all on our to-do list. And speaking of the list, good God, you guys really threw us for a loop this year. I want to do them all. There was about a total of like 16 or 17 movies, and we had to whittle it down to just 4, which was really tough.
It was definitely, and even with picking Slither, which is one I know we wanted to do, a lot of that came down to, okay, well, we got this movie and this movie, and they take place in this time, so we need something around this time period, and it took us a while to sit down and whittle it down, but I think we got a good list.
Yeah, you guys did break my heart though, because I was really hoping someone would pick Tremors, because you just recently got the Arrow box set and I have been dying to cover it. So I was like, please somebody pick it, please. But it was not to be.
Well, you do pick like 20 a year.
Yeah, well,
So.
I'll tell you, Tremors is coming. Another surprising thing, you guys really wanted zombie movies. Like, holy shit. Even this movie is kind of a zombie movie in some ways.
Brains.
Yep, brains, send more brains.
Yeah, maybe picking a zombie movie last week wasn't the best choice.
Well, we
We
didn't know that there was so many zombie movies on the list, but yeah, man, you guys really wanted to hear zombies. But there are zombies coming. I will make that promise. But we are locked in. We will be posting the schedule this week. So if you want to watch the movie before the episode, or if you want to know if your movie got picked so you can, be on the lookout for your episode, you can check that out. And speaking of checking out, go get you some Grindhouse Syndicate t-shirts. It is almost summer and we got a perfect Camp Grindhouse shirt that you can wear to camp. Matter of fact, I am wearing it right now. And if you want to win a free shirt of your choice, then all you gotta do is guess what movie we will be covering at the end of the month, where we are going to have one of the cast members of that movie join us. Now, since this is the last week we are doing this, I'm going to give you some hints. Number 1, it is an early 2000s remake with a huge budget that, despite its popularity, was considered a box office bomb. Number 2, the writer/director of Slither also wrote some of this movie. That is all you get.
Probably a pretty big hint.
I would think so, but you're going to have to do some digging. This ain't going to be something that's super easy, but that is all you're going to get. Good luck as always. If you think you got the answer, comment on the episode's post, comment on the YouTube, DM us, or good old-fashioned email.
Speaking of the shop, I am, for this month, I guess this week, I'm going to put together a new Grindhouse Syndicate shirt, a zombie shirt.
I thought about that last
zombie.
week, as we really needed a Night of the Living Dead themed shirt.
Well, I have a couple stowaway ideas. Obviously, I'd have to go in and work them out. But I think by the end of the week, I can get a zombie shirt put out. So.
Yeah, that's a good idea. If you didn't know, all our shirts are themed. They're kind of subgenre themed. So if you're into that, go check it out. So now that is out of the way, are you ready to talk about Slither from 2006.
I am slithering to
You're
talk about this
you're
movie.
slithering. All right, let's do it.
Hello, boys and ghouls. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on with the show, talk about or submit your movie requests, or just say die, then I got good news for you. You can always find us at one of our social media accounts or our official website at Grindhouse.Horror.Pod.com, Facecrook at the Grindhouse Syndicate Horror Podcast, Instascam at grindhousesyndicate.horror.pod, and many gore, which you can always find links for in the show notes as always. And you know what I always say, the morgue, the merrier. So please subscribe or follow for alerts on new episodes. Now, back to the show, kiddies. Frights, camera, action.
And if you really love us and don't want us to grow tentacles and get pregnant with alien worms, give us a review. Slither is a 2006 science fiction comedy horror film written and directed by James Gunn in his directorial debut, who, if you are not familiar with, got his start working for Trauma Entertainment, and before he did any directing, he wrote the 2002 live-action Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo 2, and the 2004 Dawn of the Dead remake. In order to secure finances for his passion project film Super, he wrote this movie, and after a bidding war broke out between studios, Golden Circle producer Paul Brooks convinced Gunn to direct himself. These special effects were created by Todd Masters and Masters Effects, who single-handedly depleted the nation's supply of silicone. No shit, that really happened.
I'll put this out there. So that whole line you just mentioned of those movies, that is another hint. There's another deep webbed hint on who the special guest that's going to be interviewed is going to be. So I'll put that out there.
Giving too many hints away. We're going to have to give a shirt away. It was produced by Paul Brooks and Eric Newman, and it stars Nathan Fillion, Elizabeth Banks, Greg Henry, and Michael Rooker. The film is set in a small town in South Carolina that becomes invaded by alien parasites. It was produced by Bright Light Pictures, Golden Circle Films, and Strike Entertainment. It had a budget of $12.8 million and a box office of just $15 million. It was released in the United States and Canada on March 31st of 2006 by Universal Pictures and TVA Films, but it was considered a box office failure after grossing only $12 million worldwide against a $15 million budget. On the positive note, though, it did receive positive reviews from critics, which saved James Gunn's career, which led him to do all those fucking superhero movies he's done since then.
That sucks.
Yeah. Controversies ensued over the many similarities and plot points shared with Fred Decker's 1986 horror comedy Night of the Creeps, and according to James Gunn, both Cronenberg's Shivers and his 1979 film The Brood were the two biggest influences on the story, while also paying homage to the horror comedies from the 1980s. Now, like we said before, Slither was considered a box office flop because it did not even come close to recouping its total budget of $29.5 million. Paul Brooks, president of Golden Circle Films, said the company was crushingly disappointed by the gross, causing Universal to distance itself from the film, citing their distribution of Slither as merely part of a deal with Golden Circle. Two-faced bastards.
Yeah, you when you get a movie and it's a good movie and it gets good reviews, but it bombs, you got to look at distribution.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nowhere else to look. Think about a movie like Dr. Sleep. How great of a movie was that? And it was a bomb in the box office.
Well, we didn't even know it was coming out.
I actually did. I remember way before there was a trailer or anything for it being at the movie theaters and seeing, I, at the time, didn't know that there was a second book called Doctor Sleep. And I seen a poster in the movie theater, like a cardboard stand up, and it said like a return to the Overlook Hotel or something like that. And I was like, holy shit, they're making a sequel to The Shining. So I was aware that it was coming out. But when it actually hit theaters, I had no idea because I hadn't heard anything about it because the distribution was so bad on it that they didn't get the word out. And, you can't blame the people who put their time and effort into a movie when people watch it and they say, this is a damn good movie. You have to look elsewhere. The, the writers and directors and actors, they can't do everything.
Looking at you, Universal. So, The Hollywood Reporter speculated that Slither's performance might have killed off the horror comedy genre for the near future. Producer Paul Brooks suggested that Slither failing to catch on indicated that filmgoers were no longer interested in horror comedies. Slither was released on DVD on October 24th of 2006. In addition to the film, the DVD contains 2 making-of documentaries, deleted and extended scenes, a blooper reel, visual effects progressions, a set tour with Fillion, and an audio commentary by Gunn and Fillion. Also included are featurettes outlining how to make edible blood and Lloyd Kaufman's documentary discussing his day on set. And last but not least, a bonus entitled Who is Bill Party, which is a joke feature made by Gunn with the sole purpose of roasting Fillion, and it was shown at the film's wrap party. I highly suggest you watch that. It's really fucking funny. Basically, they get the whole cast and crew to talk shit about Nathan Fillion. He is a great sport about it. Honestly, watching any of the behind the scenes stuff, this movie looked like a blast to make.
Yeah, everybody who worked on it said that the atmosphere behind this whole thing was great.
Yeah.
Mr. Gunn himself was like the director that he's not the like serious, treat people like shit,
Kind of like the last movie we
he doesn't
covered.
have to be like the Palpatine
Yeah.
of the set. Like everything was joking with him. Really. So the collector's edition for Scream Factory had all of that stuff on there. I watched all but I think 2 of them. And yeah, everything on here looks like this was not working. We'll just put it like that. Not working, more having fun.
So I have the OG DVD, which is the one I watched, and it has all of this stuff on it that I just named. I mean, it's packed with behind the scenes, interesting stuff. They have a whole thing about how to make edible blood. I mean, this is what a physical release should be. So, Shout Factory released a collector's edition on Blu-ray on July 25th of 2017. In addition to new case artwork, includes new special features such as a new audio commentary with James Gunn and cast members, new interviews with James Gunn and actor Greg Henry, as well as all of these special features found on the original DVD. If you don't have this, pick this up. It is 100% worth it. You probably have close to an hour and a half of behind the scenes stuff, maybe a little more on this Blu-ray or DVD, whichever version you get. But it's worth it. If you like this movie, it's totally worth it.
And as we mentioned on the Patreon news that we do weekly, Amazon right now, for you physical media collectors, is running a massive sale on all Scream Factory related titles. I don't know if it's all of them, but select titles, but I had the list. It's a fuck ton of them. And I'm sure that this is probably one on the list. They got Blu-rays going down to $8.49. So there's no like date on that when it's going to end. It's just while supplies last. So if you were wanting to pick up that collector's edition, now is the time to do it.
So ratings. Rotten Tom, 87%. I'm really surprised. I thought that they would dog the shit out of this. IMDb, 6.5 out of 10. Letterboxd, a 3.2 out of 5. But the Google average audience rating is a 3.8 out of 5. If you would like to watch this movie, you can currently find it for rent on Google Play, Fandango at home, Apple TV, and Amazon for $3.99. Are you ready to talk about Slither?
What was Rotten Tomatoes?
87%.
So that means Rotten Tom had it higher than the Google average audience rating, which is just insane for a
Yeah,
movie like this.
I agree.
Rotten Tomatoes is generally we can kind of predict them, but I feel like lately, man, we've been getting some that are throwing us for fucking loops here.
I agree.
But yes, I'm gonna make this joke again because I don't have another one. I'm slithering to get into Slither.
You've got a nice slime trail right to the plot.
It's nice and slimy.
All right. So we start off with a shot of a meteorite hurtling through space heading right for Earth, where it lands in a wooded outskirts of a little town in South Carolina called Wheelsey. And we then jump to the sheriff, Bill Party, and his main deputy and friend, Wally. And they are sitting in their police cruiser attempting to clock people speeding and apparently catch some Z's, when we then see that they missed this meteorite that passes right over them and lands in the woods behind the car. And this is where we get our first parody of the film, where we do the Evil Dead thing as the camera quickly moves through the woods as fast as it can until we stop at the meteorite, which is laying on the ground smoking when it suddenly pops open, revealing a bloody and slimy inside.
Gotta say, I'm stoked that you picked up on the Evil Dead. I figured
fuck
you'd
yeah.
pick up on it. I would call it more of an ode, just because of hearing interviews and stuff. Like, he did so much in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
To try to, like, down to the name. I wish we could name them all. I wish I had a list.
I named a lot
wanted
of
to.
them, but I couldn't fit them all in there because we do have a time limit.
Yeah, but yeah, he completely dedicated this entire movie to the genre itself, especially the outrageous, like, 80s and 90s stuff we got. But yeah.
I'm
I
pretty
digress.
positive that there is things that I picked up in here that you didn't, and vice versa, because there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a good bit of shit.
So as the camera zooms in, we then get our title card, Slither. We then jump to the next day where we see the town is gearing up for a little celebration called Deer Cheer. We also get a few shots of the town where hardcore horror fans will notice some familiar names like R.J. McCready's funeral home. This is kind of a odd town though, because this scene, there's a lot of sketchy people just kind of hanging out on Main Street, and there's like a bunch of graffiti and, sad to say, Confederate flags hanging everywhere.
Goddamn Confederate flags.
There's one guy that has like no lip.
Yeah, that was weird. I didn't think the prosthetic for that was very, very
They show that preacher is like smoking a cigarette. Like, it's just kind of a weird introduction to this small South Carolina town.
It really shows you what Hollywood thinks of South Carolina. That's what I felt like.
Yeah, because for those of you who don't know, we live in South Carolina, but we live in a big city, but we have been through many of South Carolina's small towns, and they are not like this at all.
No, there's some trashy ones. There's definitely some not great ones, but there is more charm to them than this.
Yeah. So we then meet some of our other main characters. We have Mayor Jack McCready, who is definitely not your typical mayor type. He is very loudmouth, vulgar, and doesn't seem like he gives too much of a shit about his town or constituents.
See, I would digress that I think he's just like every mayor, except he doesn't hide it.
I'll agree with that. And I want to say right here, right now, in the beginning of this, I honestly love the mayor. He is a very entertaining character, and he may be my favorite character of the movie.
I agree. I put way down here, down at the bottom of my notes somewhere in here, that I absolutely love fucking hating the mayor.
Yeah. Next, we have Starla Grant, who is played by the absolutely stunning Elizabeth Banks. And she is our main character and final girl of this movie. She is a high school teacher, and despite the fact that she is talking about some scientific shit, all of her male students care about is how hot she is.
Yeah, would be right there with you if I was still in high school.
I don't know if you caught this, but we get a quick glimpse of the high school sign, and it says, "Congratulations, Cooters. Third place, second division." But more importantly than that, the school's name is Earl Bassett, which was Fred Ward's character's name in the movie Tremors.
Yep.
Earl Bassett Community School or whatever. Yeah, thought that was super cool. So next we see another teacher who is played by the writer and director himself, James Gunn, standing in the parking lot talking to Starla when suddenly Starla's older husband aggressively walks over and pulls her away. And as they walk away, we discover that Starla's husband, Grant, immediately suspects that the other teacher wants to sleep with his wife. Now this tells us that Grant is a very jealous and overbearing husband, leading to a bit of a rocky marriage. But the one real important takeaway here is that his name is Grant, which would mean his full name is Grant Grant.
Yeah, what awful parents, man.
I find that hilarious.
It's like his mom had a really, really rough, delivery, and she's like, "I hate this kid already. I'm just gonna give him 2 names."
She's just so tired. They're like, "What's his name?" He's like, "Grant. Just give him another Grant."
You know,
It's fine.
back in the day when there was for people who's ever looked through their ancestry or tried to track down old paperwork where stuff was spelled wrong. Like for example,
Oh,
our last
yeah.
name was originally LOW until about the late 1700s when
Yeah.
some idiot
Spelled it wrong.
spelled it with an E, and that's how it just rolled off. It's been an E ever since.
Yep.
But yeah, it's like somebody fucked up. Somebody was high or something. when
Yeah,
they did
maybe.
the paperwork.
So we then jump on over to the crosswalk where we see an off-duty Bill talking to 2 of his deputies. One is named Hooper and the other is named Carpenter. When he spots Grant and Starla across the street, and this starts up a conversation where we discover a bit of the backstory between Starla and Grant. And apparently, Starla grew up poor out on the edge of town with a drunk father and a runaway mother, and when she was just 17, a much older Grant who had a lot of money convinced her to go out with him and eventually marry him. Also, apparently, this female deputy is a lesbian, and Bill says, "Hell, if he would have had a gina, you would have married him too." And then this little kid looks up at him and says, "What's a gina?" And he says, "It's a country where Chinese people come from."
That's a believable thing to tell a child.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ain't got nothing better.
By the way, this kid is labeled in the credits as Gina Kid.
Gina Kid. I love it. See, that's how you know it was a fun set
Yeah.
to work on when they literally gave a kid an official name as Gina Kid.
Yeah.
Also, really quick, for those who didn't catch it, the Carpenter and Hooper names are obviously references to legends Toby Hooper and John Carpenter.
Absolutely. We then fast forward to later that night where we get a quick outside shot of Grant in Starla's home, which is pretty fucking big. And we cut to the bedroom where a very horny Grant yells to Starla if she is coming to bed. Once she lays down, we see Grant immediately start to kiss her and basically try to fuck her. But she pretty quickly shuts him down, saying that she is not in the mood and maybe he should just go and do it himself. And this very much pisses Grant off, who then jumps out of bed, puts his clothes on, and says he is going for a walk. We then jump to a local bar where we see Grant having a drink and some absolutely awful karaoke. This woman should be shot the next time she goes near a microphone. But while sitting at the bar, Grant gets approached by another woman named Brenda, who immediately starts flirting with him by telling him she used to have a crush on him back in the day. What is wild here is she is talking about how he used to date her older sister back in high school, and she had this big crush on him, and he's like, "You couldn't have been more than 10 or 11 years old." And she says, "Hell, I was game." And I was like, did I hear that right? I had to rewind it.
I think they're kind of alluding to her It was a kind of a quick character build on the type of person she is, which
Yeah, and we see she has a baby later
yeah,
on.
not only just a baby, like, she's grown up, she's a single mom, nothing against single moms out there, she's just a single mom on her own with 2 different kids from 2 different dads who are completely not in the picture. She spends her time at a bar hanging out, that's what she does. Yeah, so I think that was some kinda quick character development, she was trying to give it out at 11.
So, anyway, after a bit of flirting, we see that Grant and Brenda have left the bar together and are now walking into the woods to hook up. Honestly, my opinion, they are too damn old to be sneaking off the fuck in the woods. Like, that is something you do when you're 15.
Well, they're actually so they're not going to fuck in the woods, which I think is very important to this part of the story. But she was telling them how she had a crush on him, and she had carved their initials into a tree when she was a kid, and he didn't believe her. She was taking him out there to show him that.
But then she tries to fuck him.
And he turns her down because of his wife, which is why I say it's important, because had he specifically went out there just to fuck her, it'd be a little different. But I have some sympathy for Grant here. I could tell by the way you wrote it, maybe you don't have as much sympathy for him,
No.
but I see it as with his wife's situation. She came from a broken home. She had, obviously a very hard time growing up, and he gave her not only financial stability, but emotional stability that she didn't have, which is why she married this much older man. But throughout the movie, you can tell that he does genuinely care about her, and she does genuinely care about him.
So Brenda jumps on Grant and begins kissing all over him when suddenly a wave of guilt rushes over him when he remembers that he is married to Starla. And it is at this point where he tells her that he can't do it. And Brenda gets pissed and starts bitching at him, but he pretty quickly stops paying any attention to her because he spots the busted open meteorite laying on the ground about 15 feet away. Him and Brenda then go to investigate when they notice a slimy white trail leading deeper into the woods. So they follow it where Grant comes upon a slimy sack that is moving around and making weird noises. And what do you do when you find some weird shit in the woods? You poke it with a stick, of course.
Yeah.
It's everybody.
Everybody.
So Grant is fucking with this thing when suddenly its face vagina opens up and this little spiky dick thing pops out and shoots Grant right in the chest. Grant immediately grabs his abdomen in pain as we see him lift his shirt up, and the little spiky worm thing wiggles its way into Grant's body. Grant then falls to the ground, and we get this like X-ray shot of his body where we see this worm thing travel from his abdomen up to his brain where it pleasantly makes itself at home.
I would normally hate this like X-ray shot, this thing moving up through his body
Agreed.
in most movies, but it fits really well in this movie for some reason.
Well, I don't know how they would have made it, more clear, and they only do it this one time, so I feel good about it.
It just fits. Like, there's a lot of CGI in this movie, and this is, I will say, and I'll say it throughout this episode, this is a good example of a movie mixing CGI and practical effects really well at times. But yeah, normally I would hate this in a movie, but I think it works really well for the type of movie it is. And it's just really cool seeing this thing make its way through his body and up into his brain.
I will say about this movie is I had thought a vast majority of it was CGI for a very long time, up until last year when I bought it and I wanted to cover it. The whole reason I got it was because I'd found out that like 90% of the effects are practical, but they do use a lot of CGI to enhance it. And that kind of tricks you. Like if you don't know that, it kind of makes a lot of practical stuff look CGI. But some stuff I'm going to talk about in this episode, I really thought it was CGI, but now I've seen the behind the scenes and all that, so it's interesting.
They have a really cool featurette too that actually shows the breakdown of the CGI process in quite a few of the scenes, and It shows them building, not building, but the shot of the built practical
Yeah.
effect, and then the in between, the rough CGI added, and then the final, and how they play off of each other really well.
So Grant then jump scares Brenda as he quickly pops up while acting very odd, and we also see here that he is bleeding from his nose, eyes, and ears. And without saying a single word to Brenda, he just stumbles off back towards his truck. We then see him pull into his driveway, head inside the house where he raids the fridge for all of the raw meat they have, which in today's economy would have been like $250 in meat.
Yeah, it's a lot of extra meat.
So the next morning, Starla is feeling a little bit bad about giving Grant those blue balls, and she decides that she is going to dress up all sexy and play some romantic music in order to show Grant that she is in the mood. So Grant, who totally now has this alien worm living in his brain, comes upstairs and sees this and is a bit confused. I do like how Starla, she's like trying to seduce him, and she pulls like part of her robe back, revealing like a tiny part of her shoulder. And she's
Yeah.
like, nothing more attractive than the top of a woman's arm.
Well, he's old, so he's probably like, "Yeah, baby,
Yeah.
show me some more of that fucking shoulder.
So,
Get rid of that shoulder strap. That's a G-string for a shoulder."
yeah, G string for an arm.
I bet props to Sasha for
Sasha.
or not Sasha. Fuck,
Starla?
Starla.
Yeah.
Props to Starla for making the effort
Yeah.
to, kind of make up for things she felt bad. That's what I mean. These two do love each other.
Oh, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that at all. It definitely seems like they have not a bad marriage. It's good in a lot of ways, but I do think that when we see in the beginning where Grant he doesn't want her to talk to people like that she works with, and he very rudely just pulls her away, immediately assumes this guy wants to sleep with her. He has a bit of a far-reaching jealous streak, I think.
Well, and a part of that may come back to their marriage, their sex life not being very great. Maybe he's a little insecure, because I do feel bad for him in that aspect. Obviously, things haven't always been that way, but now him being that much older than her is starting to make a difference. Like,
Yeah,
he's starting to look a lot older than her, as opposed to when they probably got married 10, 15 years prior. But yeah, I do feel bad for both of them throughout this movie.
So as Starla starts kissing on him and shit, and it becomes very apparent that Alien Grant has no idea what sex is, and let's just say he likes it, as him and Starla begin fucking on the couch. So after this, we see Starla head into work, while Grant goes off and buys all of the fucking raw meat he can find, even to the point of filling up his whole entire truck bed. And he obviously ends up storing it all down in the basement because later that day, Starla discovers a padlock has now been installed on the basement door.
So the reference to the meat is a reference to the fly. The name of the meat company, I didn't write it in my notes like a fucking idiot, but the meat company name in the grocery store is a reference to the original fly.
Yeah, it's like Brindle fly, Brindle meat or something like that, yeah.
Also, so when they go to have sex, he tears up, which seems like a weird part in this movie. I didn't really get it very much at first, but it ends up, now looking back on it, it's a very important part of the story. Ends up being pretty big at the end.
Well, here's an interesting thing about this story with these two is James Gunn has said in a few interviews that when Grant gets shot in the chest with the worm thing, Grant as a person he dies. He is dead. But and this worm thing takes over. But one thing the worm thing kind of inherits from Grant is this love for Grant's wife.
Yep.
So this isn't actually Grant. This is this billion-year-old alien that just inherited this thing that it doesn't understand about this person that it doesn't know.
Yeah, I do think part of Grant, like, his memories and stuff are still part of his person is still there, although he's dead, but regardless of that, that's what makes this very important, is this, like, billion-year-old creature who's been wiping out these planets has never experienced or felt love, and this is its first time it feels that love that Grant has for her, and that's why it tears up in the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's a very small part. You really don't really pay much attention to it the first time you watch the movie, but it becomes very big at the end.
So later that night, we see the couple getting ready for the big deer cheer celebration at the local bar. And while Starla hops in the shower, Grant finds that this red, bubbly rash has begun to spread over his body from the wormhole in his chest. While fucking with this rash, Grant feels the worm kind of take over, and he suddenly gets this feeling that he needs to attack Starla. So he creeps into the bathroom where we see these two gross ass tentacles with needles pop out from his shirt and begin reaching towards Starla. Grant then slowly begins reaching for the shower door when suddenly his love for his wife takes over and stops him. And right as Grant gives up on this plan, Starla turns around and sees him standing there like a creep. But Grant is determined not to let Starla see his tentacle dicks as he quickly turns around, buttons his shirt back up, and says he's got to go to work. Starla, who is totally confused by this, asks Grant what about the deer cheer party, and Grant says that he will meet her there as he takes off running out the door. So
I wouldn't want anybody seeing those tentacle dicks either.
No. So next we jump on over to the deer cheer where we see most of the town dancing, drinking, and conversating. And we immediately spot Sheriff Bill Party and his deputy Wally sitting at the bar having a beer when Bill spots a very nicely dressed Darla minus Grant talking to some friends. And this is where we find out that Bill has not only known Starla most of her life, but has also been in love with her. I have a feeling she has never gotten a speeding ticket.
Yeah, I doubt it. Did you pick up in the beginning of this movie? I meant to bring this up earlier, real quick. So when she is teaching about the resiliency of cockroaches. Now,
Yeah.
they've been around for
Mhm.
like millions of years. And she's like, in that aspect, if you compare it to humans, who is the stronger species?
Yeah. And
And
that's actually a really good point, but yeah.
Yeah, I never picked up on that the other times I've watched this movie, and I thought that that was really cool that they added that in there, and it's a really good foreshadowing of what the entire rest of the movie that plays out.
Well, what's really interesting about that, what she says is she basically is kind of saying that this cockroach is actually the stronger species. It's been able to survive a lot longer. But one thing that we see at the end of the movie is we have this alien that's billions of years old, has been able to survive longer, but it is taken down by a much lesser species.
Yep, but there's a reason for that. There's an emotion that
Love.
cockroaches do
Yeah.
not feel
Yep.
that
What makes humans unique.
the species got a taste of. Yep.
So while that is going on, we jump over to Brenda's house where we get a nice little trauma Easter egg as we see her watching The Toxic Avenger on TV. And she hears a knock at the door, and when she opens it, she is surprised to find Grant standing there. And Grant is immediately like, hey, I changed my mind. I want to smash. Which, by the way, he says is the old half Mexican around. I don't know what it is, but Michael Rooker plays a lot of racist characters.
That's why when they said this movie's set in South Carolina and you're going to be an older white guy, they thought of him.
Yeah,
They're like, you're good at being racist.
that was a line that was very Merle-like. Very
It
Merle
was.
from The Walking Dead.
Matter of fact, the first time I watched this movie, well, I won't say the first time because I've seen it a long, long time ago, but when I bought this movie, because I seen this way before The Walking Dead.
Oh, they used to
long
play
time
the
ago.
shit out of
Yeah.
it on cable.
Yeah, but whenever I bought it and I was watching it, I'm like, where the fuck is this guy from? Like, it was driving me absolutely nuts before I finally pinned that it was Merle.
Yep, it's Merle. So Brenda goes and puts some cheese and crackers on a plate for them to eat, and we then get this creepy shot of Grant staring down into the crib at this baby while smiling. I personally thought he was going to eat the baby. So Brenda and Grant start removing their clothes when suddenly Grant rips the rest of his shirt open to reveal this gross looking red rash that is kind of like moving around on its own. And then we see the tentacles come out of his skin and start reaching for her. Brenda is, of course, freaked out and tries to run, but Grant grabs her and holds her still as we then see the slimy looking tentacle dicks stab into Brenda's stomach and begin injecting alien cum into her body. Back at the bar, we see that Starla has gone outside onto the deck by herself, and she's kind of just standing there thinking about Grant when Bill then comes out and begins talking to her. And we can tell here that these two definitely have some serious feelings for each other. This is 100% the love that never was. But before things get too awkward, Starla interrupts and says that they are about to miss the big speech and they should head inside. Once back in the bar, we see the mayor get up on stage and make his Dear Cheers speech, which causes the crowd to erupt into applause, where we then see the band begin playing again and Bill and Starla share a dance. So after the party, Starla heads home, but when she walks in the door, she finds that all the lights are off and Grant is nowhere to be found. After looking around the house, calling out for him, he pops around the corner where we see that Grant doesn't look so good. He is covered in these big red welts that have begun bubbling out of his skin, and he also has this big baseball-sized lump growing out of the side of his head. Starla is shocked by his appearance and asks him what happened, and he tells her it is just a bee sting and he has already seen the doctor who gave him some medication for it. The next morning, we see Starla at school where she heads to the break room and calls Dr. Carl to ask about Grant's condition. But Dr. Carl is confused because he tells her that he hasn't seen Grant in his office in over a year. Interesting fact here, Dr. Carl is voiced by our friend of the show, Mr. Rob Zombie.
Wow, did not know that.
Yep, there were some complaints by the crew on the behind-the-scenes documentary that Rob Zombie showed up to set with a large cloud of dust around him.
Yeah, sure. Sure, it was probably just dirt shoe marks and dread drags behind him.
Yeah, apparently James Gunn and Rob Zombie were buddies, and he asked him to come in and do this cool little voice cameo, which he did.
Surprised I didn't recognize his voice from him being on the show.
Well, now that you know that and you go back and watch it, it's very apparent. One thing about these movies that show these small towns, and I don't know if this is true or not, but the fact that one, you personally know your doctor and he knows you, and two, you could just pick up the phone and call him and just ask a question. That is not something I have ever dealt with. Like, trying to talk to your fucking doctor is like trying to get a hold of the president sometimes.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'd imagine it'd be a little different in small towns. I did find out a couple months ago from somebody I worked with at one of the branches that there's doctors that you can pay for that, like, I guess people with money pay for, and they just pay them by year. They don't pay them by visit. And they can literally call them at any time.
Oh,
Like,
man,
they'll
if
do
I get
house
rich,
calls
I'm
and
doing
shit.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking, just picking up the phone and asking your doctor a simple question would be fantastic instead of scheduling an appointment and fucking going in and then waiting in there an hour even though you showed up on time and then you fucking see him for 30 seconds and he walks out and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
That was a big old clusterfuck for a fucking 2-second answer. So, a now very upset Starla drives home where, while sitting at a stop sign, she notices a large community board that shows all of these missing pet flyers, all of these dogs and cats that have gone missing in the past few days. I did see that somebody had named their cat Fang, which I thought was a pretty cool name for a cat. So after that, we then cut to Grant, who we see down in the basement gathering all of these dead, mutilated pets, and he puts them in these trash bags and he heads out into the woods where he eventually comes to this large abandoned barn. And when he heads inside, we see a very upset Brenda who now has this huge stomach. and she tells Grant that she is so hungry she thinks she's gonna die. But Grant's like, no, no, I got you, as he dumps out the trash bags, revealing dead pets and large cuts of raw meat, to which Brenda grabs a handful and joyfully begins shoving into her mouth.
Yeah, you know she's hungry, but she's not even concerned about being, like, chained up or anything. She's just like, "I'm hungry."
Just give me raw meat. Back at home, Bill and Wally show up looking for Grant, but Starla tells them that he isn't home from work yet, and she then asks him, what is this all about? And they tell her that a girl named Brenda disappeared the other night and Grant was seen going into her home. And she is instantly in denial because she says that there's no way it was him and it must have been somebody who looks like him. Bill says okay and hands her his card before leaving the residence. I gotta say, man, Elizabeth Banks looks so fucking attractive here. When you can make a shirt, like a button-up shirt and a sweater look hot, you're doing something right.
Yeah, she is stunning throughout this movie.
She is hot wife material.
She is
Sure.
definitely wife material. I'll say that.
So after Bill leaves, Starla gets freaked out and decides she needs to see what the hell Grant has down in the basement, because for all she knows, it could be Brenda down there. So she breaks the lock and she heads down the stairs, and what she finds is pure nightmare fuel.
House of 1,000 doggies.
Yeah. So the first thing that hits her is the undeniable stench of death and rotting meat. As she heads down further and further, she begins to see this curtain of black plastic. And as she pulls the plastic aside, she is immediately hit with the dead body of their neighbor's dog. She then flips on the light, revealing tons of dead animal carcasses, flies, and blood everywhere. So a now totally freaked out Starla runs back upstairs and immediately calls Bill to come back. But before she gets a chance to really explain what she just found, Grant shows up and he looks even worse than he did before.
Bro, when she looks up and he's in the window, like that is one of the things I remember the most about the first time I seen this movie, because we don't see him this fucked up yet. Like, this is when he gets into, okay, there's no bee sting.
Not a bee
This
sting.
is really fucked up. And she looks up and he's standing in that window and then catches her. I was like, holy fucking shit. Because you're still in shock about the dog thing, too.
Yeah.
They did a absolute incredible job on the basement set.
Yeah.
Like, that whole set with, I mean, the amount of dogs and animals and stuff they had to come in.
The dead
do.
coyotes look
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, all of it looks good. And we've said it on this show before. We'll say it again. If your spouse has a secret room that they keep locked up away from you, do not trust them. It's a murder room.
Don't even attempt to try to get in the room. Just leave. Just leave. You know, fuck it. Don't worry about it. Just get the fuck out of there.
There's always something dead in there.
Because you always fucking die after you see what's in the room. Like, once you go in the room, they're like, okay, I gotta kill you now.
Unless you're Starla.
Yeah. So she takes off running with Grant chasing her through the house, where he eventually grabs her and throws her to the floor. And he is kind of pissed that she is scared of him, even claiming that she doesn't love him anymore because he is now so ugly. He then tells her that she betrayed him and he can't trust her anymore, as he then begins unbuttoning his shirt, revealing his spiky tentacle dicks. And right before he penetrates her, she hits him in the head with a small table and attempts to grab the phone. This doesn't work out too well, though, as Grant comes up behind her and puts her into a chokehold. And while his arm is wrapped around her neck, we start to see his arm begin to change. Bill and 3 of his deputies burst through the front door to find Grant trying to kill Starla, where they all immediately pull their guns, and a now very angry Grant releases his wife, revealing that his arm is now a long-ass tentacle, which, as you can imagine, leaves the police stunned. Grant then jumps up, growls at the cops, and takes off running, with his now long tentacle arm knocking over furniture as he escapes out of the back door.
I love the arm knocking the lamp over. I thought that was hilarious.
So, this tentacle arm is a practical effect, like most in this movie. And an interesting fact here, it actually dislocated Michael Rooker's shoulder while filming the scene.
That's why I thought it was hilarious because you can tell it's heavy. Like, you can tell it's
Yeah, and he's
heavy,
hurt.
and, like, the way he's running out with it, like, trying to hold it up, and it knocks that fucking lamp over, it almost looks like it was not done intentionally.
I don't think it was. And Michael Rooker didn't tell anyone that his shoulder was fucked up until they said, "We got the scene." One thing that was repeatedly talked about in James Gunn interviews was how much of a trooper Michael Rooker was while filming this movie, because the special effects were awful for him. He got a ton of abuse from this movie, but he apparently was super cool about the whole thing. And as a matter of fact, him and James Gunn became really, really good friends after this.
Apparently, according to the interviews from at least from his point of view, James Gunn called him. He was one of the first to be cast and was like, "Hey, I gotta have you for this role. Like, I'm a huge fan. I love your work." And before like getting into any of the shit he was gonna have to do, he was like, "You know what? If you're that big of a fan of me, I'm in."
Yeah, I've seen a lot of behind the scenes stuff with Michael Rooker, especially stuff from like The Walking Dead. Amazing dude. No one ever has anything bad to say about him. And I got some really fucking cool stories about him from this movie that I'll tell a little bit later on. So, after Grant escapes, we then get a black screen where we see it is now 3 days later, and we find ourselves at the police station where Mayor McCready is bitching at Bill to hurry up and find Grant because the town council is pissed that this is messing up their deer season. Bill then explains that this is a situation that they aren't really prepared for and they are trying their best, but McCready then says that it's not that big of a deal. Grant just has Lyme disease, which causes the whole police station to burst out in laughter. The mayor gets pissed about this, but before he can say much else, they get interrupted by the dispatcher saying there was another attack at the Castavets, which is a cool little Rosemary's Baby Easter egg. And I got to thinking about it, and last year, during Fan Appreciation Month, we covered Rosemary's Baby.
We sure
Yeah,
did.
what a coincidence. So Bill and the gang head out to the Castavets farm where we see that he has mutilated a bunch of dogs and drug this cow into the woods. The special effects here are fantastic. I love when he holds up the fucking dog head. Looks great. So this gives Bill an idea on how to catch Grant. Back at the station, Bill explains that he has been hitting these farms in a pattern and he believes he knows where he is going to strike next. So they are all going to load up on guns and stake out the Stoudemire farm and see if Grant shows up to steal any of their animals. And it is at this point where we get our Chekhov's gun of the movie, as we see the cops loading up on weapons when one of the deputies asks Bill if they should take this grenade they confiscated from some fishermen. But Bill says no, because obviously this is going to come back into play later on. So as Bill and the gang go and head out, Starla pulls up in her car and demands to go with them. And of course, Bill says hell no. But Starla makes a good point by saying that the only way they'll be able to find out where Brenda is if they bring Grant back alive. And Starla is the only way that is going to happen, which causes Bill to give in. So we then see the posse pull up to the Stoudemire's place where we get a brief introduction to the family. We have Otis, the dad, his wife, his oldest daughter, Kylie, and two younger daughters who I didn't bother to learn their names because the important thing here is Kylie is going to be one of our main characters throughout the rest of this movie. So we then skip to later that night where we see the posse, who consists of the whole police force, the mayor, Starla, and a few local townspeople. And they are all hidden around this fence, around this one single cow. And we see that everybody is pretty bored here. But this does lead to some funny conversation with the mayor saying to one of the deputies damn, it's a good night to chase some pussy, ain't it? Just
Bro,
out of the blue.
He has the best quotes in
He
the whole
does,
movie.
man. And he then asked the deputy, well, what about that female deputy Hooper? Do y'all got a little thing going on? And he just responds with the most deadpan reaction, Hooper packs a box lunch. And the mayor gets this surprised look on his face and says, well, no shit. Yeah, that's funny. Also, we jump on over to Bill, Starla, and Wally, where Bill begins to tell the story about how a 12-year-old Starla went to run away to Hollywood and knocked on Bill's window to ask if he wanted to come along. Funny thing that I did not notice until this interview, but this one scene drives James Gunn nuts because the shadowing was like way too dark in the corner of that shot, and it makes Elizabeth Banks just look like a floating head. And ever since he said that, I can't unsee it. Totally agree.
Never noticed.
So after this touching conversation, we jump back over to the mayor, who goes to light a cigarette when he suddenly notices something moving towards them in the tall grass. As he then stands up to get a better look, he is shocked by what he sees. Because remember, he still hasn't seen deformed alien Grant yet, and he totally dismissed Bill and the others' description of him looking like a fucking squid. And what makes this even better is Grant is almost unrecognizable at this point. He is like a blob that has tentacles flying around where his arms and legs used to be. Plus, he has 2 more tentacles coming out of his head, and the mayor's reaction is pretty funny. And this old-ass cop says Grant now looks like something that fell off his dick after the war.
So I would, if I seen Grant in this form and creeping through that tall grass, no fucking way in hell I'm going after this.
I would shoot at him.
I
But
would
I
be
wouldn't
like,
chase
I
him.
am fucking not fucking with this. Nope, I don't get paid enough.
So Grant then slithers up to the cow with everybody watching in disbelief and pretty quickly whips one of his tentacles back and cuts the cow's throat, killing it as it falls to the ground. There is actually a funny outtake of this scene where they tried to use a practical cow, but when it fell over, it looked extremely fake, and it ended up being hilarious to the point where the whole crew like bust out in laughter. And it was so bad, they actually had to go in and add a digital cow falling down. Definitely watch the behind the scenes, man. There's a lot of really funny scenes like this. So after this, Grant then wraps one of his large tentacles around the cow's neck and begins dragging it into the woods when a now shocked Starla jumps up and confronts him. Once she yells his name, he turns around and holy shit, he looks awesome. Grant now has no clothes on. He is pretty much this big glob of chewed up bubble gum with all these tentacles just flopping around. It looks kind of like his brain is on the outside of his skull now, and his face is like half monster with these sharp teeth and then half Grant. So, huge props to Michael Rooker for pulling this off. This makeup took 3 hours to apply every day and another 2 hours to remove. And in order for the tentacles on his head to freely move around, they had to place this motor that controlled them on the back of his neck, which ended up being very painful as every time it was on and moving, it tore up the skin from rubbing him raw for hours every day. And the weight of all this actually still causes him back pain to this day. Yeah,
Dedicated.
dedicated as fuck. So Starla and the posse approach Grant, and she says that he is just sick and he needs some help, and she will stay by his side just like she promised in her wedding vows. Grant does think about this for a moment before he changes his mind, lets out this loud growl, and turns to continue towards the woods. But right as he turns around, he is confronted by one of the locals pointing a large pistol at him, saying, "Stop right there, you son of a bitch." Grant then whips one of his tentacles at the guy, which happens so fast, it's hard to really tell what happened here, but we do get a close-up of the man, and we can see he has a funny, confused look on his face. As the camera sits still for a moment, we start to see a red line begin to appear right down the center of his body. Now, this line becomes redder and redder with every second until we start to see the man's body slowly begin splitting in two. And after a few seconds of this, we see him drop the gun and his guts just fall out as he drops backwards to the ground dead.
No, this was fucking awesome.
Yeah, so basically Grant uses this tentacle like a whip and he cuts the man in half hot dog style. It's amazing.
And it's so fast, like the body doesn't even react to it at first. Like it's literally slowly, like the blood just starts seeping out of the whip.
Yeah, I love
Mark.
it. Love it. Love it. Love this kill.
Yeah, when his guts fall out, man, when the body finally gives way and his whole, like all his intestines and shit fall out, I was like, damn, that was good shit.
So after Grant kills this dude, he takes off into the woods while everyone fires their guns and chases him.
Bro, he doesn't just take off. Bro, he looks like a fucking, like a 10-foot skink.
Yeah,
Like-
he all ass.
Bro, if there was anything that, like, any part of me that was willing to go after him after I just seen him cut this guy in half, when I seen him start moving like that, I would have been like, no, I'm going home. We're calling the government. We're calling whoever we gotta call. Call up the guy who dropped the bombs in the Return of the Living Dead. Whatever we gotta do, nuking this place. I don't give a fuck. I'm not going after this guy.
So they're all chasing him, and the mayor pretty quickly gets winded and tries to use reverse psychology, which is hilarious. So they end up following him to that large abandoned barn we saw earlier, but as they check it out, there is no sign of Grant himself, and there is a rancid smell coming from inside. And just as they prepare to go in, Bill starts to hear the sounds of a woman crying. So once Bill realizes that Brenda is inside, he and Wally do a rock, paper, scissors to determine who is heading in first. And this is another nod to Tremors. So Bill leads the way with the posse close behind him, and what they find is truly insane. As their flashlights shine into the room, the camera pans out to reveal Brenda, who has now started to lose most of her hair. Her mouth is covered in blood, and her body is now a
Blown.
huge blob.
Bro, she's what's the fucking the girl from
Violet.
Willy Wonka?
Violet.
Violet.
She-
She's like a massive version of that.
She takes up most of the barn. That's how big she is. The posse is so stunned by this that they lower their guns and they begin to calmly talk to Brenda, who immediately asks about her baby.
Bro, my favorite part is whenever they first walk in and she says something's wrong with me, and Bill's just like, yeah. He's just like, yeah. Like, I'm not even gonna try to sugarcoat it. Like, something's fucked up.
So right as Bill goes to talk to her, we see her body kind of rumble. So Bill then asks her what exactly is going on here, and she starts getting upset, saying that she is so fucking hungry. And she then asks if he minds handing her a little piece of that dead possum over there, which is hilarious. It's such good timing and delivery. So Bill is like, we got to get her to a hospital now, when suddenly her body begins to rumble more and more. Brenda then starts screaming in pain as we then start to see her skin begin to split open as she screams that those little bastards are tearing her apart. And right before all hell breaks loose, Bill looks over and he spots Grant watching from a window, where he realizes that Grant led them here on purpose. But before they can chase after him, Brenda's giant, round body explodes like a pimple, causing thousands of these worm slug-looking things to spill out everywhere. And before we go any further, I want to talk about Brenda's body. So this was a real prop that stood 9 feet tall. It was so big, it actually had to be built in an airplane hangar and it required multiple people inside of it to operate it. Also, James Gunn fought hard for this thing to be built like it was. The art department kept sending these different versions that were much, much smaller and easier to build, but he kept sending it back, saying that it needed to look, quote, like a giant titty with Brenda's head as the nipple.
That's what it looked like.
And finally, the last bit of interesting info is the actress that played Brenda, whose name is Brenda James in real life, didn't read the whole script when she auditioned. Once she got the part and was flying out the set, she read it on the plane and got so upset that she agreed to be in this dumb movie. She cried the whole way. Also, turns out she has like, what's it called? Like a meat phobia or something. Like the sight of raw meat makes her sick.
Well, she's
Yeah,
fucked.
yeah, exactly.
There's actually footage of her in this whole like get up inside of the giant balloon boob with her head stuck through, and James Gunn's on set telling the story as she's there. He's like, "Yeah, so you want to tell them about how when you took the part, you only read the first script and the first page of the script, and then you took the part before you realized what you were gonna have to do." So he's totally like just fucking with her while she's up there and stuck in this probably a harness, I would imagine, inside of this thing.
Yeah, she was really upset when she arrived, and thankfully James Gunn was able to calm her down and get her to agree not to drop out of the movie.
Yeah, when he's fucking with her, it's like totally in a playful way.
Yeah. So these worms end up everywhere, knocking most of the posse to the ground, where we quickly see the worms crawl into their mouths and render them unconscious. Bill pretty quickly figures out what is going on here, and he yells for everyone to cover their faces. After this initial attack, the horde of worms takes off into the woods towards the town, and we see that we are left with Starla, the mayor, Bill, and Deputy Hooper. Once again, the mayor's reaction is fucking gold as he says, "That damn thing tried to get in my mouth. What kind of thing wants you to eat it?"
Yeah, I really wish we'd had time to take his clips
Yeah, oh,
from
yeah.
to clip those because the way he says it, it's just comedy gold.
Yep. So after all that, we then jump back on over to the Stoudemire house where we see the horde of worms slither into the front yard. Meanwhile, inside, we see that Kylie is relaxing, enjoying a hot bath, while her two sisters are being put to bed. Did you catch the two little girls reading the OG Goosebump books?
I did.
One is reading You Can't Scare Me, and the other is reading The Girl Who Cried Monster. Cool little drop in there. Back in the bathroom, we see that for some reason this family leaves all the goddamn windows open, and the worm has found its way into the house, and it is now slithering its way into the tub. Now, Kylie is laying there with her headphones on and her eyes closed, which means she has no idea what is going on here.
This is totally a fucking nod to the Nancy in the bathtub, OG Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite scenes in all of horror, which is the glove coming up between Nancy's legs. So the alien worm then makes its way up the side of the tub and into the water, and this is where we get that replica shot. So this thing starts swimming up towards Kylie's face when she suddenly opens her eyes and freaks the fuck out, immediately jumping out of the tub, but it is too late as the worm has latched onto her back and is now crawling towards her mouth where it quickly forces its way past her lips. Thankfully, though, she is able to grab its tail and keep it from going all the way in, but as she struggles to get it out, it begins connecting to her brain, which starts to show her the memories of this alien creature. And what she sees here is that this thing crash lands on planets, takes over all living creatures, and once it has everything, it starts, like, I don't know exactly how to describe it. It kind of like binds all these creatures into like one big creature, kind of like when the Power Rangers bring their Zords together and make like the Megazord. That's kind of what happens here. Kylie starts to see all of the alien Grant memories too, showing her and us that this thing is hive-minded. So all of them are connected to the original source, which is Grant Squidward over here. So after this fun trip down memory lane, Kylie is able to finally rip this thing out of her mouth and slam it into the wall. But alien worms will not be defeated so easily as it immediately comes crawling back towards her. She then grabs a curling iron and slams it onto the back of the worm, basically burning it to death. So this worm here and the one that she had in her mouth was made from thermal gel, which is what they make sex toys out of. So she's basically got a dildo movie prop.
She has a Slither worm dildo.
Yep.
That she has to put in her mouth.
Buy it now. You can get your replica Slither
Yeah,
movie prop dildo.
That probably exists.
So after this, Kylie puts her clothes on and runs out of the bathroom yelling for her mom when suddenly her mom comes stumbling out, spitting blood into her face. She then hears her sisters screaming from their room where she attempts to help them, but the door is now locked. Did the fucking worms lock the door? How'd the door get locked?
I don't know, but yeah, the worms killing the kids reminds me. So I'm pretty sure back in the beginning that Grant does eat that lady's baby. They never explain the baby.
No,
I'm
they
pretty
don't.
sure he feeds the baby to her. Yeah, I'm pretty sure what ends up happening is he feeds her own baby to her,
That's fucking...
which I think was too gruesome for them to get in the movie, but I'm pretty sure that's what was insinuated of what happened.
So once she finally breaks in, she discovers that it is too late as we see both little girls laying on the floor with blood coming from their mouths and worms all over the walls. Quickly realizing that the house is now infested with these creatures, she climbs out of the window onto the roof of the porch where she is forced to jump down. This would have killed my fucking knees, man. Like,
Maybe not at her age.
that's what I'm saying though, is like what it's like to have the body of a teenager again. Because my fucking knees would have shattered from this. This is a really big jump. It's like 20 feet.
Yeah, it's a big roof.
Also, in my personal opinion, they gotta be paying homage to arachnophobia, man. Like, this whole scene is very Arachnophobia, which is a movie I totally loved. Surprisingly, it's a comfort movie for me. But yeah, man, this is like dead on the kind of climax of that movie. So now, with hundreds of worms chasing her and her family who has reanimated under the control of the creatures, she is forced to get into her dad's truck and wait it out. Back at the barn, Bill can't seem to get a hold of the dispatcher, so he informs the rest of the group that he has to run to the car to call it in. And while he is gone, he wants them to move the bodies out front until the paramedics arrive. While attempting to take care of the downed officers, the mayor goes on a rant about how he believes this is a biological weapon created by the government and he plans on suing their asses off. And because he is such a nice guy, he informs Hooper that she can sue with him because he doesn't care that she's a lesbo.
Yep, quote of the movie, "You can sue right along with me. I don't care if you're a lesbo. You don't deserve this shit."
So fucking just funny.
Literally the quote of the movie for
man.
me.
So while this is going on, we suddenly see Wally sit up, which gave me total Jason Goes to Hell vibes. And as he stands up, he begins talking to Starla, but not as Wally, as Grant, because remember, hive mind. So as Grant is attempting to explain himself, Hooper and the mayor walk out and are super confused about what is going on, and it just gets more confusing as the rest of the infected posse members get up and also begin talking to Starla. So back at the house, Kylie is still hiding in the truck, but now it's not alien worms trying to get in, but her zombie alien worm family who is attempting to get her to open the door. Thankfully, though, Bill comes running into the front yard where Kylie gets out of the truck and runs over to him for help, and a confused Bill then looks at Otis Stoudemire, who is now covered with blood and large areas of his body growing yellow and red boils, and asks him what the hell happened. Otis then looks at his arm, confused, and then says, "Poison ivy out back, maybe?" As the two little girls follow this up with, "We're itchy."
Yeah,
This is so good.
one cool thing I did notice whenever they're all, like, talking shit to her, to Kylie, trying to get in the car, at one point, he says, "Let Uncle Grant have some fun with you."
Oh, that's
So that just
that's
goes back
bad.
to that hive mind
Mhm.
that it's Grant too. Like, they're
Yeah.
not just playing off as her dad,
Yeah.
it's Grant also, his obviously taken over
Mhm.
mind doing that, which also made me think with the girl in the beginning that he was babysitting that was 11 that he was gonna hook up with, he married a super younger girl who was, like, probably right out of high school, and
Uh-oh.
now he makes this comment. Maybe Grant had some underlying,
Issues.
bad character traits.
So Kylie then grabs Bill by the shoulders and looks him right in the eyes and says, "They're not my parents. The worms are in their brains." And considering that they're all bloody, gross, and walking like zombies, Bill believes her. But before they can get away, the man with no top lip comes up from behind and hits Bill in the head with a shovel and then tells him, "Starla's my woman, you prick." And that is when the camera pans over and we see tons of zombie like people walking straight for them. Bill then shoots the man with his revolver, jumps up, and attempts to run back to his police car. So we then jump back to the barn where we see like 5 Grants attempting to talk to Starla when suddenly zombie alien deputy grabs Hooper holding her hostage. Hooper then quietly goes for her sidearm when out of nowhere one of the other zombie alien cops spits a large amount of yellow greenish liquid at Hooper, causing it to begin burning her skin. We then see her neck and face where the liquid landed begin to swell up as blood runs down her face. This causes Starla to point the shotgun at them and demand that they get away from Hooper, but it is unfortunately too late as Hooper quickly dies from the zombie alien acid. Wally Grant then begins walking towards her, yelling she isn't going to shoot him because she doesn't have the balls, but Starla has had enough of this weird shit and fires the gun, blowing half of Wally Grant's head off, which looked amazing.
And then we get an awesome, cool, like, worm slithering out of his blown off fucking half his blown off head.
Yep.
Thought it was awesome. Awesome kill.
So after that, the rest of the zombie alien posse start walking towards her, but when she goes to fire another round, the gun just goes click, prompting her and the mayor to take off running. So back at the house, we see that Bill and Kylie have made it to the car, but are quickly surrounded by tons of alien zombie people. And what this tells us is that the worms have obviously gotten to most of the town already.
Yeah, and it is at this point that this full-on creature feature has now turned into a zombie movie
Total
slash.
zombie movie, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, considering the situation, Bill realizes that they got to flee the area, but right as he goes to take off, he kind of spots Starla and the mayor running out of the woods down the street. And right before one of the posse members goes to grab the mayor, Bill slams into him with the car, allowing him and Starla to jump in and haul ass out of there. This whole scene at this house is extremely similar to the Night of the Living Dead. Very much
Yeah.
OG Night of the Living Dead.
See that?
So while riding down the street, Bill is finally able to get a hold of the dispatcher Shelby, who you may notice is played by the wonderful Jenna Fisher, who I didn't know this was actually married to James Gunn at the time.
Oh,
I got a
didn't know that.
I got a really cool story about this at the very end of the episode.
Man, Jenna Fisher is always been super cute to me.
She
But
is very cute.
when she was in Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, and they're in that RV and she's laying on top of him, and you get probably the only shot in cinema of her ass. Oh my God. I'll never see her the same.
Yeah, I feel like, half of America had a crush on Pam Beesly. She's just cute, man. So he asks her if she has seen any of these alien worms, and she's like, no, but his mom called in and said that the toilet is all backed up again from what he did there Sunday. Because apparently Chief Bill Party takes big old massive shits.
Yeah.
So despite this embarrassing message, he tells Shelby to get the CDC on the phone ASAP. But unfortunately, Shelby's never going to get a chance to make that call because right after she talks to Bill, we see a bunch of alien worms fall out of the air duct above her. Meanwhile, back in the patrol car, the mayor is stressed the fuck out after everything that has happened, and to make it worse, somebody forgot to pack his Mr. Pibb in the cooler, and it's the only Coke he likes. This causes him to essentially have a breakdown where he says people are spitting acid at him and driving his friends around like skin cars.
Skin cars. It's a new term. I like it.
I do too. After this freak out, Kylie finally tells the group about what happened in the bathroom and the flashbacks she saw. And this is where our main characters here discover the hive mind stuff and the fact that this really old alien thing is here to take over the world. So after this discussion, we see that the gang has now made it back to town, and Bill radios Shelby at the station to ask about the CDC. But when she comes over the radio, it is very apparent that she has been taken over by alien worms. And right as she's talking shit, we see this big old Suburban slam right into the side of the police car, wrecking it into a sign and knocking them all unconscious. Sometime later, Bill wakes up surrounded by zombie aliens who quickly drag Starlet and the mayor from the car and away from the scene as Bill and Kylie escape. After running around for a bit, the two end up reaching the police station where it has become apparent that pretty much the whole town is now infected. Bill then tells Kylie to stay put as he runs into the police station to grab that grenade because he believes that if they can kill Grant, the rest of them will die. And this is something that we have seen in just about every body snatchers type movie.
Mm-hmm.
Very much the Faculty.
Faculty, yeah. Did Bill really just give Kylie a fucking rock to protect herself with?
He did. Most certainly did. So Bill runs into the station where he immediately notices the place is wrecked and the lights and phones don't work. Despite this, though, he heads to the back where the weapons rack is to grab the grenade. But right as he turns the corner, he spots a motherfucking zombie deer eating a dead man's neck.
It's a zomdeer.
Zomdeer. The deer then looks up and immediately attacks him, throwing him across the room. And all of this commotion catches Kylie's attention from outside. Back in the station, the deer pins Bill to the floor as it bites his arm and begins slamming him on the ground repeatedly. Bill tries to fight back, but ends up getting punched in the face by the hoof multiple times.
Straight kangaroo style.
But just when it looks like Bill is done for, Kylie shows up and hits the zombie deer in the face with a fire extinguisher, killing it.
You know, it makes me think that Grant just happened to be the first person to come across this thing. There was a very, very high likely that an animal,
Yeah. That's a good point.
And if it can take over animals, which if that's the case on most of the planets, it probably has started with these animals, turning these giant, like deer-like animals into these killing machines, which would explain why in billions of years it's never came across love.
Yeah. So I do want to talk about this scene real quick. This was actually supposed to be a lot longer and more elaborate, but James Gunn hated the look of the zombie deer and it was way too late to make anything else. So he just cut it really short, and he also did like a lot of shadows in this scene, which is why we don't get to see the zombie deer. You can see pictures of the zombie deer from behind the scenes when they made it. I personally think the zombie deer looks fucking awesome, and I wish we would have got more of it.
Yeah, I haven't seen the behind the scenes picture. I do like the dark shadows on it, though. It makes it even creepier.
Oh, it's so cool, though, with lights on it, man. It looks badass. It looks like it's like burnt and crispy, but it's evil. It looks awesome. So, back at Grant's house, we see his army of zombie alien people carry Starla up to the bedroom while she is still knocked out. They clean her up and they put her in this white silk nightgown. Meanwhile, down in the basement, the mayor has found himself in a much less desirable predicament because when he wakes up, he sees that he is surrounded by these zombie people who are having themselves a flesh buffet. So, this of course freaks him out as he quickly takes off upstairs, but right when he opens the basement door, he finds two big ass spiky dick testicles are waiting on him as they immediately stab him in the chest and begin to pump alien cum into his body. Back upstairs, we see that Starla has finally woken up, but quickly figures out that she can't escape as the windows are now boarded up and the door is guarded. After realizing that she has no other choice but to confront Grant, who is downstairs, she looks for a weapon that she can easily hide on her body. She ends up spotting a fancy hairbrush on the dresser that has like a kind of like a spike for a handle, and she grabs it and she pulls the bristles out and she tucks it safely under her nightgown. Now that she is armed with at least some kind of weapon, she then heads downstairs to meet with Grant, who is yelling for her. Back outside, we see that Bill and Kylie are quietly following the zombies back to Grant's hiding spot, where Bill figures that he is most likely holding Starla. What the fuck is up with that scene where Kylie like randomly falls on her face?
I don't know.
Like, that had to have been like an accident, and they were like, we'll use that one because it's like more realistic. But they're following the zombies that are dragging the bodies, right? And
Yeah,
they're like
she eats
sneaking
shit.
around. She eats shit out of nowhere, and he has to stop and come back. And you can tell like she like hurts her leg when she falls. There's no kind of padding. It's not a stunt person. It had to be on accident, man. We then jump to the basement where the mayor has now been impregnated by alien Grant and his spiky tentacle dicks. And we see here that the hunger has finally become too much for him to handle as he reluctantly crawls over to this dead body and begins eating her arm while crying. I fucking love the mayor, man.
Yeah, I was sad to see the mayor go.
I was too, but
I'm glad it was
it's
into
funny.
the movie.
It's funny too that like he's like just so upset and crying while chewing this fucking human flesh. So after that, we then jump back to Starla, who has finally made it downstairs. And as she comes around the corner, her breath is taken away by the sight of her husband, Grant, who is now almost completely unrecognizable. This shit is fucking wild.
Bro, this whole ending set is incredible.
It is incredible. So Grant is now this huge entanglement of flesh and tentacles made up of multiple different people who are all stuck together. And this flesh is like connected to the walls and the ceiling. Like he now takes up the whole entire living room. You know what he looks like? He looks like a Cronenberg Jabba the Hutt.
He does. Yeah.
100%.
Soon as you said know what he looks like, that was the first thing that came to my mind.
Yep.
But like way bigger and way creepier. Like I said, this whole ending, the whole set's incredible. Like from this point on, we get nonstop, like creepy ass creatures, cannibalism, zombies, shit tons of blood and guts.
Yeah, it gets wild.
It's good.
Yeah, buckle in because it's about to get wild. So anyway, the sight of this brings Starla to tears as she slowly walks towards a very pissed off Grant, who is calling her a bitch and saying that she went against her vows of for better or worse. I personally think that those vows only apply if the other person stays a person and are pretty much void once you become 562 other people all melted into one gross blob. Back outside, we see that Bill and Kylie have finally arrived at the house, which is now boarded up and crawling with zombie alien people. And it is at this point where we get one of my favorite scenes of the movie. So this random infected dude in a bathrobe walks up to the back door where we see Grant's blob of, I don't know, like tissue just hanging out of the back door. And this man takes off this robe, revealing his fat, naked, boiled covered body. And he lays down belly first on this blob and starts like melting together. It's like
It's awesome.
if
And
you
gross.
it's like if you laid down in a batch of like sticky glue and slime and then you tried to get back up. That's what it looks like. Like it's like stretchy and shit. And the whole time this is happening, the guy is in like ecstasy. Like, I don't know if he's like fucking this thing or having like an orgasm or what, but it is very similar to the shunting scene in the movie Society. If you've seen Society, you know what I mean.
Well, I mean, they're all one. They're all one mind. So it's like as more pieces of this mind come together, it's like this euphoria. That's the way I took it, at least. Yeah, it's super creepy, and like as ecstatic as he is over it, it makes it even that much more like just gross and awesome.
It is awesome, but it is gross. It's totally fucking gross. So while this is happening, Bill and Kylie are watching, and Bill says what we are all thinking. That is some fucked up shit. But while watching this, he spots Starlet in the living room through the window, and he decides that him and Kylie are going to sneak in there and blow Grant up with this grenade. So back in the house, we see this huge tentacle wrap around Starlet's body and begin pulling her close as Grant says, "You tried to kill me and run off with Bill Party, and you want to fuck him now because he's so good looking." So thanks to some quick thinking here, Starlet begins crying, telling Grant that she is sorry and she thought he was trying to kill her, and that, considering the situation, he can't expect her not to go through some adjustments after all of Grant's changes. Grant then thinks about this for a moment and realizes that she has a point, as he then looks at her compassionately and begins removing his big-ass tentacle. Now, before we go any further, once again, huge props to Michael Rooker for pulling this off, because Grant's final form was an absolute nightmare for him. This was essentially a giant puppet that he is inside, and it had to be operated by 7 puppeteers that trained for 5 months in order to make the movements look realistic. And because this was such a pain in the ass to set up, once he got inside, he wasn't allowed to get out. And this man spent 18 hours inside of this thing on his 50th birthday.
Good God.
And you know what? He was a total fucking good sport about it.
We're gonna have to give him a Grindhouse Award for that one.
Dude, if you see the behind the scenes of this, when they finally get done and the crew's like cut and everyone's cheering, Michael Rooker's still in this thing and he's like, "Hell yeah, let's all have a drink."
Yeah. No, I would be unless they let me sleep like half
I'd
the
be
time.
like, "Get me the fuck out of here right now."
Yeah.
What a badass, man. What a badass.
What do they call it? A Dundee Award?
Yeah.
We're gonna have to give a Grindy Award out for that one.
Man, I have been to the Walking Dead set. I went into Norman Reedus' restaurant, and right before I got there, I seen that they did this surprise birthday party for Michael Rooker. And this was like 4 years after he had been on the show. He hadn't been on the show at all, but he remained friends with everybody. And he went there and he gets this big surprise birthday party. And there's like 200 people there. And he got so emotional because this many people like cared to do all this. And he was genuinely like thankful for everybody who came. Dude is fantastic. He's a great dude.
It's like, thank you guys for being friends with me after seeing how good I am at being racist.
Yeah. So Starla continues to sweet talk Grant, basically telling him that she can still be with him even though he looks like a giant, heavily infected, diseased ballsack. And right as she leans in and begins to kiss him, she pulls her weapon from under her nightgown and stabs him right in the neck. He then freaks the fuck out, screaming in pain as his big-ass tentacles smack Starla across the room and into a wall. Back outside, Bill attempts to make his move as he runs towards the front door, dodging some acid spit from a zombified Pedro Pascal as he blocks it with the welcome mat. Kylie, who is running up from behind, quickly gets caught by a Tommy Jarvis-looking zombie from Part 6 as she turns around and blows his brains out with a pistol. As Starla is getting her ass beat in the living room, Bill bursts through the front door for the second time in this movie, but before he can make it more than a few steps, a now totally disfigured Mayor McCready grabs his legs while crying and begs for Bill to kill him. Well, you don't gotta ask him twice because he happily points the gun at him and blows his brains out as he continues towards the living room. This is a great scene. A perfect ending to such a great character.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that he doesn't think twice. He barely lets him get his sentence out.
Dude,
he
doesn't.
just blows his fucking brains out.
He doesn't even finish the end of his sentence. Yeah.
He's like,
great.
nope, I have no problem doing this.
Yep.
I did this while you were alive, too.
So right as Grant goes to kill Starla, Bill and Kylie run into the room with Bill holding the now pinless grenade up high, about to throw it. But this potential victory is short-lived because Grant immediately knocks the grenade from his hand, sending it to the other side of the room. A now panicked Bill and Kylie both run over to find it, and as soon as Bill grabs it and goes to throw it again, Grant knocks him through the window into the backyard where the one and only grenade they have rolls into the pool where it explodes, leaving Bill totally fucked.
I thought it was in some ways so poetic, too, that they confiscated this grenade because people were going to throw it in water and fish with it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It ends up blowing up in water anyway.
I love that, you get this setup earlier in the movie for this grenade, and then this grenade comes into play, and it's like the one thing that's going to save the day, and not once, but twice. Grant gets the jump on them, and it ends up wasted. Doesn't kill anybody.
Hasn't been doing this for billions of years for nothing.
I mean, at this point, Bill would have been better off just throwing it from the backyard through the fucking window. So back inside, Kylie, who is standing there in shock, gets fucking blasted by a couch, which also slams her into the wall. Bill then rolls over and goes to get up, but is surprised when he spots Grant's big-ass spiky tentacle dicks heading right for him. And before he can get out of the way, one stabs him in the stomach as he fights the other one off. We then see a very horny Grant begin pumping his alien cum into Bill, but motherfucking Bill party won't go down that easily.
It's like P. Diddy. This is a P. Diddy party. P. Diddy just gets in a corner and just forms into this giant blob and just starts fucking everybody with tentacles.
God, somebody Photoshop P. Diddy on Michael Rooker's face in this scene. So as he then notices a leaking propane tank laying next to him, he quickly grabs it, turns it on high, and jams the other tentacle dick into the nozzle, which immediately begins pumping Grant full of the flammable gas. A now super pissed off Grant begins pulling Bill over to him, and as we start to see Grant's body begin to fill up with propane, Bill yells for Starla to shoot him. And when she does, we get this huge, bloody explosion which immediately causes all of the zombie aliens to drop to the ground dead. One complaint I do have, this could have been so much cooler if they would have done a practical effect explosion instead of the CGI.
Yeah. Agreed. Never big on CGI explosions.
They can't do blood with CGI. Still to this day, it still doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
So now that Grant Alien is finally dead, we see the smoke clear and Starla runs over to a dead Bill. But he's just not any Bill. He is Bill motherfucking Party. And he is still alive. But he does have alien cum leaking out of his abdomen, so it's not all positive. Oh, and somehow Kylie is also still alive, and she informs them that Bill should be fine because in order to get knocked up, you gotta have both alien dicks inside of you. So I guess getting pregnant by an alien worm is similar to two-part epoxy. They both gotta come out of the tubes and mix. Who would
Well,
have thought?
well, I mean, wouldn't it have all been for nothing anyway? Because once he died, all the other ones that he infected died. So
Maybe.
even if he would have been infected, it wouldn't have mattered.
Maybe. I don't know. So after they are all reunited, we see them head outside where it is now morning and there are tons of dead bodies everywhere. And to top it off, with Grant out of the way, Bill and Starla can now finally be together. We then get some happy music playing as we watch our survivors slowly walk down the street and into the sunrise. But that is not the end quite yet, because we then get an end credit scene where we see a very much still alive brain laying on the floor, moving around, when suddenly a curious kitty walks over to it, and as the cat begins sniffing around, we see that little alien dick pop out as the screen goes black, and then we hear the cat screech in pain, telling us that the invasion is still not over. And that is the end of Slither.
Man, never caught the end credit scene.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it's way back there.
It is at the very end of the credits.
Yeah, this is like my third time seeing this, and I've never seen the end credit scene.
So, funny thing that you mentioned that because I had never seen the end credit scene, and I just happened to see it because when the movie went off, I was still writing it.
That is the exact same way I seen it. Was writing my notes
Yeah,
at the end of the movie.
yeah,
I was writing my ratings and stuff, and best skill, and I was like, oh shit.
yeah. So we had a lot of facts throughout the episode, but I do got a couple interesting ones here, just a few.
I do want to touch on the ending though. So which is the main thing of this entire movie is that this, billion-year-old creature that's been conquering planets is finally stopped by love. Experiences love for the first time, which is him crying. We talked about it earlier. Crying and experiencing that actual feeling of not having that loneliness for the first time. And it is essentially what brings him down. I mean, even when Sophie goes to shoot him, when Starlet goes to shoot him,
I was like, who?
bro, my spell check
That's
literally
fine.
changed it. Everyone, when Starlet shoots him in the end, they even have this embrace. Like they look at each other in the eyes, and he almost has this like, "I know you got to do it." Look, like almost like he knows she's gonna do it, and he understands. Very interesting. Like he had saved up all these pictures and stuff throughout this whole situation that's happening. He still has this attachment to her because it's the first time he's ever felt love. And it is this creature over billions of years. It's the one downfall he's ever had was love. And that's essentially what wraps up this entire story.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And to add to it, I believe that this is some more props for Michael Rooker, who, despite the fact that he's covered head to toe in this special effects makeup, is still able to act without saying anything and relay those feelings that they have at the very end of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard to do.
Yep, he had that feel, like they get this embrace and he's able to convey this look that, he doesn't want her to do it. Obviously, he's like, no, don't do it. But at the same time, like right before she shoots him, he almost gives her this "I forgive you" look, and that's it.
Well, that's what unconditional love is.
Yeah.
No matter what. All right, so this is cool, man. Jenna Fisher, who was married to Gunn at the time, was not originally part of the cast. The actor in her role begged to be released from his contract because he had an offer to go shoot a pilot. So Gunn let him go rather than have a performer on set who didn't want to be there. Gunn then swapped the character's gender and gave her a few more lines. And, according to Jenna herself, she was super stoked by this news because apparently she is a huge fan of zombie films and has always wanted to play a zombie. Upon hearing the news, she screamed with joy. Apparently, this was a birthday present to her.
Oh,
And,
he got used the back door for this one.
well, there's more. By the time the movie was released, Fisher had become insanely popular from the first season of The Office. So she was the one who went on The Tonight Show the night before the film opened to promote the movie.
Huh.
Holy shit.
Well, and it still bombed.
Yeah, this is true.
So imagine had she not blown up.
Yeah. So Nathan Fillion confirmed that one of the things he really enjoyed about playing Bill was his bewildered and terrified what the fuck is going on reaction to almost everything that happened rather than reacting like a standard action hero would. And I think that is one of the pluses for this movie.
I agree. I reference back to when he walks in and fucking Violet blown the fuck up is like, something's wrong with me, and he's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have like some fake reaction. He's like, yeah, there's something seriously fucking wrong with you.
I really like the scene with him where him and Starla are out on the deck talking, and he's like, yeah, I'm trying to catch a buzz, but I don't know. I mean, I guess I just got so much muscle mass or something. I don't know what it is. I will say, I never knew that he was this funny because he does typically play the action hero main guy a lot. And to see, especially the behind the scenes stuff with him, he is very laid back and funny. All right, so inspiration for the film, according to James Gunn, was that he decided he wanted to bring back the feel of the films he loved from the 80s. Specifically, he mentions wanting to honor The Fly, The Thing, Basket Case, in a movie we just fucking covered, Return of the Living Dead. What a coincidence.
Also, The Brood. That was
Yeah.
one I've seen him mention a couple times. Yeah.
All right, so on to ratings and kill count. I got a total kills of 16. Now, I did look and see that Dead Meat counted 127 because they actually went through and counted every individual zombie body laying around. Good on them. I wasn't about that. So I got 16, which are the 16 that we mainly see.
Yeah, we like to count characters around here.
Yeah. So we got Brenda, who was impregnated by Grant and exploded. Posse member 1, who was cut in half by Grant. Posse member 2, killed by worms. Posse member 3, killed by worms. Deputy Wally, who was killed by worms / shotgun to the head. Deputy Carpenter, killed by worms and run over by Bill. Deputy Old Guy, killed by worms. Deputy Hooper, killed by acid to the neck. Guy with no upper lip, who was killed by worms / shot by Bill. Otis Strutemeyer, who was killed by worms. Otis's wife, killed by worms. Little Sister 1, worms. Little Sister 2, worms. Shelley the dispatcher, killed by worms. Mayor McCready, impregnated and shot by Bill. And finally, number 16, Grant, who is taken over by the alien, filled with propane, and exploded by Starla. Favorite kill. All right, so I am up first, and my favorite kill was posse member number 1, who was sliced in half. My second favorite is Grant Zombie Wally, who had his head blown off by Starla.
Well, I got the exact same. And it wasn't very hard. The guy getting cut into 2 pieces, like he literally gets whipped by a fucking tentacle arm, and he's maybe the only in horror history where he gets whipped in half.
Yeah, it's great. I loved it.
And then the head blown off was fucking awesome. I've seen the practical effect that they built for that, and then they blended that with fucking little worm slithering off. It was good shit.
All right, so on to rating. I gave this movie a solid 4. Again, for the second week in a row, we have a perfect blend of comedy and horror. I love the practical effects, but I am not a huge fan of some of the digital effects that they use. In my personal opinion, I think they might have used a little too much digital effects over the practical. I know 90% of the movie's practical and then they kind of stack digital over top of it, but I think that this effect makes a lot of the practical effects look like CGI, and I'm against that. I would rather see just some fucking floppy ass tentacles than floppy tentacles with CGI over them. That's just me. Fantastic casting, in my opinion. Everybody is fucking phenomenal. And I absolutely loved all of the horror Easter eggs throughout the movie. I do got a couple of nitpicks, but most of it is that CGI that we seen in the movie. But yeah, 4.
I gave this a 4.1. It does a great job at mixing comedy and horror. Awesome creature feature turned zombie movie, which we don't get very often, that pays homage to the over-the-top 80s and 90s creature horror and the genre as a whole. I love that the movie is full of references and characters, like actors and stuff. Almost everything they name, even down to like the towns. I think there's some of them that we didn't even pick up on because when I was watching the special features, they were showing footage of whenever they're like going down the town, showing the random stores. Every one of those is named after somebody. So thought that was really cool. Thought the acting was great. Thought the cast did fantastic job. I think this movie does have some good examples of CGI and practical effect mix. I think it does get a little CGI heavy at some points, especially that end explosion.
Yeah, that is a letdown.
That's probably the biggest letdown for me of the movie as far as the effects go. But the practical effects that there was really cool. The head explosion practical effect, I seen them build that. That was awesome. The cut in half, like with the fucking organs and shit falling out. That was awesome. Overall, an extremely fun movie that's full of blood, gore, and just overall grossness that a creature feature has to have.
Yeah, it sounds like we are very much on the same page with this movie.
I think it tells a really cool story too. This unstoppable alien that finally gets stopped by its one weakness, which is it feeling love for the first time. That's something that we don't get in every alien creature feature
Yeah.
faculty, the thing,
Yeah,
those
yeah,
type
yeah.
of movies. We don't get that. So thought that was cool too.
Well, once again, we thank you guys for listening. Thank you again to Brandon for requesting this movie. Please give us a follow or like if you enjoy the show. Check out the website, check out the socials, tell a friend, a family member, or your pet zombie deer about the show. And we hope to see you next time.